Hi, Daniel.
Hey, we're the only ones, I guess.
So no one else from Zuzu should join.
It
I don't
would
know about.
the way Sage had described the thing he was talking about, the change and or the pull request you had made with the Ceph orc abbreviation, it made it seem like he was going to discuss the opinions about that in here. His comments from the IRC chat. So we'll get a few more opinions.
So, but it depends on the native speaker. I don't know. If art is a
It makes sense to me. I mean, but I don't know if it would make sense to someone who's never used this before. Maybe they might be a little confused, but
what does art mean, right?
it's not like a real word. Like you're just taking the first chunk of it.
Well, having it called Ceph ADM blah 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 would
Yeah,
make sense for Ceph ADM, and having it Rook to be called for Rook would make sense, right?
yeah, but they want to keep it as one thing, though, right? So, well,
That's the way it is implemented, and that's the way the CLI is supposed to be, kind of a unified thing, and that was called Orchestrator, which is it's a name, and I think it's a good name, and abbreviate
typing the whole thing out
abbreviating it.
sucks.
Yes.
I don't know if we can make it so either word works if you do the abbreviation or the full thing.
That's going to be a bit problematic, and if we're not going to register both versions, right? Or we need to enhance Ceph iPass to actually make it work.
That sounds like probably more work than is worth the like pain of just typing it out or abbreviating it.
So I'm okay with it. But I'm just hand raising. Like, if it makes sense to you, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it makes sense to me, but I also contribute to the project, so it's like I know what the
Miguel, what do you think?
Well, I'm not completely sure about what are you commenting. I think that is about the bug that is working now, Daniel. Okay, but I don't know what is the exact problem. Something about
It
the general module, the orchestrator module.
No, it's about this one here. Yeah, that pull request 33131.
Well, I think that if you when you are typing a command, if you have to type less characters, it's better. So this is my opinion.
Okay. Then I
yeah. I
haven't
mean,
seen anyone really objecting it.
No,
No,
I
everyone
guess
seems to be either neutral or positive. So let's go.
yeah.
we have that pull request of pain, that orchestrator client Python thing that's created in the works since July, end of July. And I've paid to get it merged because of various reasons. One was, no, we don't want generated files in the Ceph repository, or no, we don't want to depend on a repository that's not owned by either Rook or Ceph, or no, we don't want that because it should not belong in the Rook source tree, or no, we don't want that because it would create awkward dependencies, or I don't know. I really cannot get this thing merged if we don't come to a conclusion where Kefo was against it. So I need a resolution where Kefo is on board. So Miguel, I need your approval, and Nathan, because I'm really I really cannot get this in without someone to accept.
Okay, well, what is the problem? I think that Kefo,
Yeah.
he really doesn't want to have the generation of the code in the repo.
No, Kefo doesn't want generated code pushed to the Git repository.
Okay, but in this case, we haven't got an external tool or third-party tool in order to get or to install the client, the Python client code in the targets. Okay, so I think that well, the only way to have something clear about what we are doing in this moment, okay, is to put the Rook Python classes in the repository, okay, because in this moment there is no place for these files, okay. So in this moment, what we need to have is to have clear what is the version of Rook that we are using, and to fix this in some way, okay? And I think that the right way to do that is to have these Python generated classes in the repository, just in this moment, okay? Because the right way to do that is to install this as a third-party dependency when we are going to install the manager in one host. I think that this is the right approach, but in this moment, this is not possible. So I think that the best solution is just to put the files in the repo. And I think that is something temporary. Okay?
I'm okay with any resolution as long as Kefo agrees with it. Right, and he was against putting it into the Ceph repository, and he has
I can hear you, Sebastian. No.
Can you hear me?
Now it's okay.
So Kefo doesn't want these generated files in the Ceph repository. Sebastian Hahn doesn't want these generated files in the Rook repository. Travis can't get it into the Rook Ceph organization, and It's
Yeah,
Kifo
it's basic.
also doesn't want it in the in my personal GitHub repository, so there is really no place for these files to be put. So,
Yeah. Yes.
Sage, I
Yes.
think
Well,
you also. I can't hear you, Sage.
okay.
Mm-mm.
Uh, let's make some kind of agreement between everybody. I think that in this moment, I think that the most simple solution is just to put the files in the repository. And yes, we should remove them. Okay, but if not, what is the solution? Okay, because I think that it's good to have everyone can have his his own preferences, but I think that we need a solution. And even, for example, this morning when I have been reviewing your pull request, okay, I haven't got the client, the root client Python files available. Okay, so for me it could be more easy to review the code if I had the files in some place. But if I want to have these files, I need to generate this. So in this moment, I think that. The best solution is just to put the files in the repository, and then when we have the final location, we can move. But in this moment, we need some kind of solution.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the third option that you mentioned? And Travis can't get into the Ceph organization. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Into the Rook organization.
Into the Rook organization.
Yeah. To
I think
depend
that
on a repo in a personal namespace. So Kifo doesn't want them in to depend on a repository in a personal namespace.
I think that's fair. We don't want. This should be in the Ceph org or the Rook org.
It does not depend into the Ceph org. It's a thing that is really tied to Rook and not to Ceph.
And we can't get it in the Rook org?
Yeah, but I think you need to talk to Bassam or to, I don't know.
more people in the community, yes.
Yeah.
But I think that Travis was was agreed to put in the Ruko organization the repository.
Yeah.
But the problem is if we haven't got this, okay, and we haven't got any date in order to do that, we need the files in some place.
I would be okay with pushing them into a Ceph repository until we have a proper location for the repository within the Rook organization. Okay, I will try again to reset my my pull request to the state of July or August. That's what we've all started with. Let's see how it goes. Orchestrator CLI, third topic for today.
All right. One quick one, really, actually, for a sec. Wait, is there an agenda doc going from, or?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
I'm pasting it. Okay, sorry. All right. Go ahead with the CLI. Cool. All right. I have a second test branch building with right now. It already passed before. could run it again. It's almost done, so I might as well just run it again. In fact, it's ready to go right now. I'll schedule it. It's almost ready. Sorry, one thing before we talk about the CLI, this one, the Podman kill none. Can I just get a +1? It looks like the Podman person chimed in to explain why it's needed.
Yeah, I think we're okay with it, right?
Yeah, it seems to fix the problem. It was running. I was triggering it at least 1 or 2 times per run, and I didn't see any. I'll run it again, but I think it fixes it.
So what about the other differences between our unit file and the one shared by Valentin Woodbeck?
So the only other substantial difference is that our unit file runs it in the foreground, and there's forks. But I don't think there's any. I don't think that matters.
Okay.
It's certainly not relevant to the shutdown part, and it seems cleaner.
Okay.
In general. I don't know why they chose to do it that way, but they did. So, and we actually have to do the foreground version because we're running a bash script that runs Podman instead of running Podman directly in the unit file because it's all the daemons are a little bit different. So, yeah, I think it'll work fine.
Okay.
All right, CLI. So I've read through your comments this morning. Let me come back. So the rename one, pull request is in flight. Okay, so for service add, I'm proposing a unified CLI, right? So I think the difference here is that I think we can do this. It might be a little bit weird, but we could do this basically with optional FS type. RGW realm.
In the beginning we had a unified add, and it just went
Did we?
awkward. When creating the
really
pool name for NFS, for example, then you need a special NFS thing.
I mean, I think in general, I think we basically don't want these extra arguments anyway. Like if NFS needs to create a Rados pool, that should happen a layer above this.
No, but it needs to know which Rados pool it should configure.
Right, but we should put that in
to use.
But we should put that in the monitor config database so that it's not like passed through the orchestration layer. That's my thinking. Like with the RGW, it used to be that RGW had a million options for port and SSL and certificate and all this random crap, and now it has nothing except for what the realm and zone is, and it just is going to pull it out of the config database. So, yeah.
If you look into my greenish part, then it's actually not that complex, right? You have NFS, Rados Gateway, MDS add, or remove, or you have Prometheus, ABD mirror, add without a name. So if you look into it, then the type, the explicitly defined type is not much different than an enumeration, except that's not actually an enumeration, but it's part of the specification itself.
Yeah, let me think. I'm trying to. Yeah, sorry, I guess I'm not quite following. I think. Well, I have. I mean, so I think for things like RM, having a single command is simpler. I don't know. I mean, there are a couple of things here I want to fix, I guess. One is that it's annoying that everywhere it's type.id, and this is the one place where you can't actually do that. It's type space ID or ID prefix or whatever. I'd like to make that consistent. And then the other thing is it's just a cluttered interface. So it feels like if we can combine it into one thing, it'd be easier. And I think even these extra arguments aren't really needed if you just follow the naming convention. I guess it doesn't enforce the naming convention. Yeah, I don't know.
But I agree. So having
Yeah.
daemon for daemons and servers for clusters of daemons, or for possibly named clusters of daemons, I think it makes sense. So
Yeah.
service ls is actually wrong.
A daemon ls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which actually was maybe. So this is the thing that I realized this morning when I skimmed over this, is that I don't know what Rook does for service ls. Is it returning services or daemons?
Well,
It doesn't have it.
It doesn't have it.
Returns
Okay.
pods. It returns
Right.
pods, which is also
Returns-
daemon ls.
Okay. So it's like okay.
If you want
So it is
service
doing
ls,
it.
then you should return the names of the custom resources.
Servicers and the size, right? And the overall state. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Did I cut out again?
Yeah. It was just laggy.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like service ls in the root case should return, or in general, in all cases, should return the service name, mds.filesystem name, and then the number of daemons, and the state maybe. I'm not really even sure. How many of them are up? 2 out of 3 are up, or something like that.
It's similar to Ceph status, which also returns the number of running MDS, for example.
Yeah.
I just don't want to type service all over the place.
Yeah, I don't want to type it either. But I'm wondering. Okay, so I guess you're saying that instead of orchestrator, what are you actually proposing? The service instance of daemon, yes, right? Daemon add an RM.
What about moving add or update or RM before? So right now
So
we have
space in manager. Yeah, I see what you mean.
we have type and then add and then file system name, and instead we are doing orchestrator add nds.fs name.
Yeah, I think that's a start, but it's still the space is bugging me with the service type. And I think the only reason
we can make it a dot.
I think the only reason to not have the dot is if you have different arguments for different ones. So for the FS, you want to have an FS type and a realm, or if you want realm zone, if you want explicit arguments, that's the only case to do it separate.
Okay, then let's go with the dot and put add RM or update before the type, and then let's see what happens. What about zone name and realm name?
Yeah, this is. Yes, this is where I'm not sure. So if it's add rjw.realm.zone.
So it
Forge. I'm not sure which of those. I feel pretty I really want RM for a daemon. Like this is the main one that I want because that's the one I use all the time for Ceph ADM. But yeah, I don't know.
Do we really need realm by default as a required parameter? How often do you use realm? For every multi-site?
My goal is to use it all the time, or every RGW deployment, regardless of whether multi-site's turned on and off. If it's off, then it's going to be like default. And so, in a default installation where you just turn on RGW, would be Ceph or whatever it'd be. RGW.default.default.host dash blah, or whatever it is, something like that. So, I mean, what I was doing here is I was basically trying to enforce that naming by adding like an explicit, realm and zone argument. We could just say this is not the business of the orchestrator, and you do it. It's your job to do it. We could also do that. Well, this would be the service, I guess, right? Or whatever it is.
Then we don't need to differentiate between daemons and services.
Well, I think it would happen in the. Well, okay, so for add, I think add is only daemons. Like, I think the way that the internal interface should work is there's daemon add, there's service update, and there's daemon RM and service RM.
No, we need service. You mean we don't need service add? We can just live with service update?
Yeah, because they're basically the same thing. Except that the add case, like if you look at the current code, the add case is just a broken version of update, if anything. Right. I mean, this is just a bug, but like right now you can do MDS update foo1 and it will deploy whatever to MDS daemons. And if you do MDS add foo2, it breaks. It complains that there aren't enough host names and blah, blah, blah. Like it's just not right.
We really need a documentation of how to define.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to clean it up. And then, yeah.
And we need to define APIs in general for Ceph. It's everything is in your brain if it comes to these decisions, and that's a bit awkward.
Yeah.
Because I have sometimes different expectations, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't write any of this, so I'm just going by what's there now. But I think this seems to be what it's currently doing. But I think these are the interfaces that make sense. Go ahead,
One thing is just that with this last proposal, about the Ceph orchestrator add, and then to start doing things with RGW, now the supported MDS, different kind of services or diamonds. Okay, I think that we are going to have more difficulty in the implementation because if we is in the way that we are going to use and to divide the different things of functionality that we are going to have in each of the parts. Okay, in this moment, if you see, we have orchestrator, MDS, and NFS, RGW, add, and doing things. Okay, this is what we have in this moment, and the order is you have the orchestrator API. Okay, Then if you are going to do something with, for example, the MDS service or the MDS functionality, then you should add MDS, okay? And then you have another possibility to manage all together all the things that you are going to do with MDS, okay? And I think that this, for me, well, is more natural to do the things in this way. Because maybe because in Spanish we have subject, verb, and then the the object
Yeah.
to do. So for me, it's more natural in the way that we have the things now. And I think that it's more easy to implement because you are dividing the functionality between different groups of functionality. So you can implement in different, I think, interpreters the functionality.
Yeah, it's just tedious because every service type has these three methods that you have to specify. Every time you make a change to like the placement argument, you change it in like 15 different function definitions. It's the same in both the add and the up. Like it's really hard to maintain right now. I think that's my verb object placement. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I would go for. I think that so we could call this service apply. Is that what you're saying? You're suggesting?
kubectl calls it service apply.
Just like a put, basically, right? It's just a create or update.
And I think apply makes sense.
Yeah,
because it also includes update. And
yeah,
using update for something to be created seems a bit awkward.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's fine. We basically have service apply, service RM, daemon add, daemon RM.
Apply RM.
Should it be daemon apply also? So I think the one question is, how do OSDs fit in here? Right now it's OSD create.
We have apply in a draft group as argument.
Would it be service apply drive group? Or would it be daemon apply OSD drive group?
No, the drive group
service, I think,
a server specification and not a daemon specification.
Yeah, I think so. And it results in one or more daemons, right? Like other services.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So in this case, it would be Ceph, Orch, daemon apply, and service apply.
Daemon minus add or daemon space add?
Space add. And then MDS dot who that. Yeah, so it'd be like that. It doesn't bother me so much to type service, although SVC is nice. Short version of service, but I don't want to abbreviate too much.
How it will be for removing an OSD? Just a single OSD?
It would be Ceph, Orch, daemon rm ost.23.
I would go without service.
Just sort of Ceph Orch apply.
Yeah, because an OSD is I think that we are okay with it. I think we are.
Like that.
Yeah.
So then the question is, do we need daemon? Because we can look at the thing and know whether it's a service or a daemon based on the naming.
Yes.
And so it could just be. But does it make sense to say F Orch? So daemon add mon.foo host foo. Like that makes sense, right? But does it make sense to say Ceph Orch apply mon.foo host equals foo? Or is this manager just to be?
That doesn't make sense. Manager.foo doesn't make
Yeah.
sense because we don't have any specific configurations for individual manager daemons.
Right, but this makes sense, right? I want to add a manager on that host. Or here, Ceph Orch daemon add Prometheus a host equals foo. Right? That makes sense. But what about Ceph y Prometheus.foo host equals foo? Like that seems weird.
No, that without foo. Then I would make it like so.
Yeah,
And what
but
about
it's different. Like I'm trying to say that when you're adding you're explicitly adding a daemon, you're not interacting with a service, but you're implementing adding a specific daemon, then apply is a weird verb. I think that's what I'm saying. I think it's daemon add. I think it should be daemon add rm. Like that. And it should be Ceph Orch apply.
The add and rm commands are always for daemons. So maybe daemon can be removed.
We could, yeah, I mean, yeah, so it could be add, and then rm, and then Ceph Orch rm service daemon name. Like that.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess this is this unambiguous.
It would work for Rook if you're not implementing the daemon specific commands, except for removing OSDs at that point.
Yeah, yeah. This works for me. This here, basically, is that what we're talking?
Yeah.
Which is the same thing as the one before, above.
Yeah, except we're deleting. Yeah, so let's apply rm add.
Okay, no daemon?
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's okay with me. If we do it, I think we should rename the arguments, though, so that they show up like this: service name and daemon name. So that for these two, it's clear. In this one, It's just name, maybe. Just name.
Hmm.
And then it'd be Ceph Orch add host D. No, the apply host D shy dev SDA. Okay.
Well, in the first case, well, the second is a service, okay? So it's okay that you are using a drive through. But in the first one, I think that it could be Ceph Orch add OSD and no?
They actually take the same path right now. So
Yeah.
it's really because when you do this, when you say create an OSD on this thing, it's possible that Ceph Volume will go and create 3 OSDs.
Yes,
Likely.
with
It doesn't right now, but it's in principle it's possible. Yeah.
And it does make sense to have that configuration parameter for other services as well. Like for example, if you really want to define a scrape configuration manually, then it does make sense to have it to be able to pass through the orchestrator.
Would it make sense to support this zone? Or is this just unnecessarily?
Okay, then we should differentiate every apply call for every type of.
Yeah.
One question.
Then it'd be like RGW apply, like this, right?
No, I wouldn't reorder the arguments.
But you're saying we should just register another command.
Yes.
So you could use either one of these. Both would work. Be a second command. But there's also Ceph Orch apply, MDS, FS name.
Yeah, that was the reason that we had these different commands in the first place.
And you
because
could either use the specific one or the generic one.
Yeah, having it it really makes sense to have a parameter called fs-name or rgw-rearm to make it really obvious for the user what the name actually meant.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Can we have a Ceph Orch apply and a Ceph Orch apply RGW as different commands? Does it work?
We can. At least currently, the current parser can do that. I don't know if we're sort of putting ourselves more heavily in an area that will make it harder to prove the parser later, though. But we can do it currently, yeah.
Okay. One question. In the case of the services, for example, RGW or MDS, I think in more parameters, okay, that could be needed. What is going to be, how is going to be solved this? With a -e with a config file, for example?
I think we don't want to configure services. So right now, here's the thing, right? These arguments are here only to enforce a naming scheme, but we really don't want to do configuration through the orchestrator. So right now,
I think
RGW
we have to.
For what? What has to?
Prometheus scrape configuration at some point.
Yeah, but those are like opinionated things, right? And so basically what you have to do now is you have to do ceph config set our client.rgw.realm.zone SSL true, whatever, right? Like you set all these, they're going to be like 10 random arguments that you pass here that specify what port number it runs on, what all this other stuff, and we put that in the configuration database instead of passing it through the command line. First, because
Can
it's
we
just
all get
more
that
work.
for Octopus? Really? Can we get all of this for Octopus?
Yeah, I mean, it's been there since Mimic. Or, well, no. Okay, so in Octopus, they added so that you can have a config section that doesn't have this dot, put it up, last gibberish part, and it'll still pull it in. So you get all the preceding hierarchical dot delimited things. That's new in Octopus. And that's all that's really needed to make this work.
What about iSCSI? Ceph iSCSI. Is it also possible to get all configurations that's needed for Ceph iSCSI into the monster?
I'm not really sure what those configurations are, but if assuming that there's a name for the iSCSI thing, like if it's client.iSCSI gateway dot something, whatever, like we can just put it in the config database, and worst case, Ceph ADM can go pull it out of the config database, right? If it needs it, and not pass it on the command line.
One thing, this means that we need, in order to set up a service, we are going to need to issue a set of config set commands, Ceph config set commands, and after we have all the configuration, then we should use the Ceph orchestrator apply RGW with a naming.
Yeah. Port equals 1, 2, 3. I mean, you'd set all the configuration options, and then you'd use Ceph orch apply RGW.
Yeah. Okay.
2. Like that. That's the idea. So, I mean, just trying to think this through. It works for RGW. Like all that right now, the only thing that Ceph ADM does for RGW is when you do this command, say, it sets Ceph configs that client.rgw.realm equals RGW realm equals realm. Does this. This is the only thing that Ceph ADM does, and then it just starts the daemon, so that it knows that the daemon knows what to do, what realm and zone it is. And the same thing for the metadata server. For the MDS, it's like Ceph config set mds.fs affinity or something. FS name. Does that. Just so the daemon starts up and it has its identity is set, and then it's the caller's responsibility to configure it. So I guess the question is, should we basically, I think we have two options. One is that we just have a single apply, and it basically has logic that says, starts with RGW, right? And then it does a bunch of stuff. And it sort of infers what it thinks it should be. Like it knows that the realm is the second thing and the zone is the third, but it's sort of like implicit. It's not well documented. It's not obvious from the interface, or we do this. And I guess if we do this, does that mean that we should have an apply for every type? I guess that's what I'm wondering. Ceph apply on.
It depends on if we still want to continue to have these special service specs.
Yeah.
RGW spec, for example. So if we completely want to get rid of those, then I think we are okay with only having one.
Yeah, just worried that it's harder to sort of. I mean, what I really want to do with this is establish a new naming scheme and make sure that Rook is also using it, so that regardless of whether you're using Rook or Ceph ADM, if you're going to configure RGW, you put it in this part of the configuration database. Like that's the goal. One of the goals of all this. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of thinking that maybe we actually do want these apply all the different per type applies. This Ceph Orch apply, and some of these won't even exist. Like Prometheus, for example, we don't actually need to create. It's really just going to be add Prometheus.host that, because we don't need to teach Rook how to provision Prometheus, or at least we don't plan to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or node agent or whatever. So a lot of this stuff is Ceph ADM specific, and it's really just the daemons that you're doing. Like Ceph Orch add, crash.host, host. Although that happens automatically currently. What happened to the NFS one was complicated, right? What does the NFS one look like?
NFS was the pool name. NFS service spec. So I kind of like the idea of having real Python classes to look what the possible configurations for services are, despite them might end up in the config store.
Yeah, as long as we restrict them to naming basically is what it's like the early versions. Like if you go look in there right now, I think the RGW spec has 10 or 15 parameters for all kinds of random stuff, and that does not belong there at all, right? That's so it's what we don't want. But this NFS one, what are they adding? Do you know the pool name? Cool.
At least Rook does it this way, so you can specify everything in the Rook RGW cosmic.
Yeah. And I think that's useful when you're using the CRD configure things. But when Ceph is the entry point, then it's not useful, I guess. That's the thing. Otherwise, in order to add a new configuration parameter, you have to teach RGW understand it, the config option, and then you have to have the right. In Rook, in order to, or even in general, in order to change the port number for an RGW or change a configuration parameter, you shouldn't have to go redeploy the container because the Ceph configuration handles all that. You should just update the configuration and maybe reload it or something.
Mm-hmm. So everything it's possible to do via Monster, that would be great, but the question is it everything? That would be great. And I still think that we might need to have these specifications to make it easy for the users to do stuff.
Understand.
If you want to have a day one configuration, right? then you're specifying your RGW specification, then you're writing down your drive group, and then you're applying both, and you're done. And you don't have to care about how these monster config paths are actually named in detail.
Yeah. So I guess we're getting rid of service. What is this? If we do this, then we actually don't have a service apply. We have an apply for every other spec type. Or do we just pass a spec and it does introspection on the type of the spec to see what kind of thing it is?
Right now, they don't have a type in it, so you need to say Ceph also apply RGW minus E. Or Ceph also apply OSD minus I.
I'm talking about the internal interface up here. So right now we have a service apply, like a kubectl. So would we have one method that has a spec, def service apply self spec, and then you do, if spec instance of, or whatever this thing is, whatever version of that is in Python to disambiguate all the different types.
If we have a type in the server spec itself, then that's easy.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So,
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I mean, name even is optional because the monitor service doesn't have a name.
Yeah. Lots of clusters don't have names.
Yeah.
Actually, only RGW, NFS, and MDS have names. And even for MDS, it's not really that sure that naming actually works. So.
Well, it's a file system name. It's not really. I guess it's yeah.
Yeah. Does it actually work nowadays to have an MDS bound to a file system?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect. So MDS have a name, RGW have a name, NFS has a name, and that's it, more or less.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
If we want to do that refactorization, we should have as many MyPy type annotations as possible. Otherwise,
so here's
a hell of a lot of testing.
So here's the second question: we should do the consolidation first? Your pull request that does this CLI name?
Yes, we have to.
Is that ready? Did you figure out what that bug was?
No, it was the bug that Kiefer just fixed in the dashboard.
Oh, the pickle thing?
Yeah, but I also need the rook refactorization.
Okay. Okay, that's the thing you were talking about earlier where you need to find a place to put the client.
Yeah, because it really makes it possible to start using these kind of type checks for rook.
And it's an automatically generated pile of code that has this.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, it's an artificially pile of code that needs a location to be put it to be.
So what if we put that in a new Git repository, put that in the Ceph org for now, just because we can do it immediately, even though it doesn't belong there. We can always move it later, and then make it a submodule.
A submodule would work.
then we could do that. Then we could do it today. Put it in the Ceph org, so we're not blocked. We could try to move it to Rook later, and when and if that happens, then we move it. Until then, it's in the Ceph org. Since we're
okay, right now it's in my namespace. I've pasted the link into the Orchestrator wiki Etherpad. So I think we are over time already.
Yeah, we are. If you text me the name of the repo, I can go ahead and create it in the Ceph org and give you access, and we'll be unblocked there.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
See you tomorrow.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys.